Welcome to Sparks, the podcast from the Sagos Group, an international leader in learning and development. We've got over 1,500 L&D specialists based in 14 countries, and we're operating globally with some of the world's largest organisations. I'm your host, Millie Gladstone, one of the consultants here based in our London office. And in each episode, we'll be igniting ideas, exploring bold strategies, and sparking meaningful conversations with thought leaders, change makers, and learning pioneers from around the world. Whether you're leading teams, developing talent, or driving transformation, this is your space to stay inspired and stay ahead. With me in the studio today, I've got two phenomenal people, both directors here at Sagos. First up, just to my left, Emily Larson, our creative pioneer with a background in illustration, maths, if I'm correct, who is currently leading our design studio, our marketing efforts, and our technology teams as well. And then in the big chair, we've got Jonna, our CEO in the UK and over in the US as well. Cognitive scientist by training, and a pretty serious heavyweight in the world of L&D. He's worked with some of the world's most famous companies delivering L&D strategies for them. And you're now also a member of the Sagos Group Committee, I hear.
I don't really like committees, Millie, but I'm on a committee and I'm happy to be on it as well.
Okay, great. That's a good message. So today we are looking at one of our favourite buzzwords in the business world, alignment.
Ooh.
The power of alignment specifically. So this is probably a good podcast for people who are leaders, who are managing a team, managing a business, and also teams themselves, I think, can benefit from this topic and what we're about to discuss. So, to get started, what is alignment?
What is alignment?
What is alignment?
Millie, well, first of all, thanks for having us on your podcast.
No worries.
This is really fun.
It's a pleasure.
It's great to be here with Emily as well. And have you got a new studio as well?
I have got a new studio, yes. Lovely orange sofa, yellow armchair that I can't sit on.
I mean, it's working in the Sagos Group is great. Things are going up in the world here.
I'd like to shout out the neon sign as well that's been put together by our studio. I think it looks phenomenal. Great.
Really good. So should we talk about alignment?
Yes, please, and what it is. What is alignment, Jonna?
Well, I would like to just start. Can I go back a little bit, stroll down amnesia lane to start my early career?
Okay.
Memory lane. I was working at my desk as a graduate in a big multinational company, and I got a PowerPoint presentation from our national CEO. Actually, he's quite famous. He's after dinner speaker now, Kevin Gaskell. Very good strategist. Big hitter. He's the kind of guy who rows across the Atlantic and stuff to raise funds for charity. Anyway, he sent us a PowerPoint that had a diagram of his strategy, and I'm going to attempt to replicate this for you. I'm slightly self-consciously aware that I'm doing this on camera with our design guru,
trained illustrator.
Yeah. So this also is. I mean, I hope I'm in a safe space and I can be vulnerable here.
We'll give you some constructive feedback, don't worry.
He basically sent us a PowerPoint that had this in it.
Okay.
Yeah?
Sure.
Arrow?
Arrow.
And I guess the first part of alignment is that this arrow can point in any direction. Yeah? This is where we're trying to go. This is where we're trying to go as an organisation. Our arrow, when I got it from Kevin Gaskell, pointed like that. But inside the big arrow is all the small arrows. And these are the people within an organisation. And they can be going in lots of different directions, can't they? So they might be going in almost exactly the same direction as the big arrow. But they could also be going in completely a different direction to the big arrow. And I would like to posit that this is a source of friction that stops organisations achieving its goal. We talk a lot about vision, and direction, which is which way the big arrow is going. But we don't talk enough about these little arrows. And also, I think if we do talk about the little arrows, often we make it about the person. So we'll say, well, that person's not on board. That one is them. We're not. We could be talking about how we get alignment, but it can turn into a discussion about, oh, well, I'm not sure they really get it, and are they really on board, etc. So what we're trying to get to, and this is the really interactive bit. Let's hope it comes across in the very verbal podcast that we're doing. What we're trying to get to is something like this, where all the individuals in an organisation are aligned with the direction of the organisation, and we're all working towards a mutually agreed goal. And if we can do it, we should be more effective and more efficient, and it should have the minimal amount of friction and complication. And that means we should be able to get our work done and go home to our families.
So alignment, big arrow, all the smaller arrows /team/people, all following the same direction as the big arrow. Do you think you lose anything by everyone going always in the same direction, no friction? Because I think sometimes when we're at work, how we grow is by having slightly difficult conversations or embracing different ways of thinking, which probably the team that you lead as a creative team inherently have lots of different ideas, lots of different ways of doing things they want to explore. Do we think we always want to be exactly 100% everyone aligned?
Or can we ask, are we ever fully aligned?
I think that's the bigger question. I think you're never going to all be 100% in agreement. Well, maybe you are, in which case, lucky you. But
no, you're just on a very small team.
Yeah, true. It's just you at that point.
It's just you. Yeah.
But I think as long as there's general consensus on what you mentioned, is that a mutually agreed goal, I think is very important, even if there's a little bit of a roundabout route or people try something else but still come back to the main goal. I think that is how you can foster a little bit of exploration around getting to that goal, but still ultimately get there at the end of the day.
So if we don't have a mutually agreed goal, say an executive team has set a goal that's then filtering down to kind of, the rest of the teams and leads and things like that, and people don't necessarily see why that's happened or don't necessarily agree with the direction that the big arrow is going in, how do we combat that to make sure we get them on the same page?
Well, firstly, as I said, the bigger your team size gets, the less the less likely it is that everyone's naturally on board. I think I think this is why alignment is so interesting. It's, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest reasons why you don't succeed, but it's kind of hidden, because people do turn up for work and they do put a smile on their face and they do say, oh yeah, I'm working towards that as well. And but they're not really, or they say, yeah, no, I'm happy with these changes that we're making. I'm going to, or I like working in my team, or that strategy, I'm on board with that. But there's a difference between what you're saying and what you truly feel. So the best organizations, through leadership, through teamwork, through culture, are ones that can align truly your inner feelings that the direction is good and that you want to put in your best efforts. And I don't think you'll ever be perfect, but let's say the highest performing teams, I would imagine, have got some of the greatest possible alignment. Yeah. Does that sound like it might be coherent and make sense?
I think it does. I guess my next question would be, how do we actually get that type of alignment?
What do you think?
Whoa, throwing it back to the host. I think
well, you worked in teams.
Yeah. I have many thoughts on this.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think a podcast station, I don't think you should just be sat there asking the questions. Go on, you can do some of the hard work here.
Yeah. So I think probably the word mutual is really important there. I think the cases where I've seen that alignment hasn't happened, or, you have that kind of secret internal feeling of, oh, I don't really want to do this, but yeah, okay, I'll smile and say that I am doing it, can sometimes come down to, either a kind of mandate coming from somewhere above that you don't see the vision of, or, maybe that's not been communicated properly. So I think actually, if you're empowered to, as a team, maybe be able to give some input or feedback and set even your own set of goals that works toward the overall company vision, that's the best way, because then you've got that buy-in as well, because you feel like you've input and helped shape where you're going.
I was going to say something similar. I think there's something about people having a sense of autonomy and feeling like they've been heard and listened to then generate buy-in for the bigger picture, whether they've contributed overall to the bigger picture or, like you say, to the smaller steps towards that. And I think giving people a little bit of the freedom, particularly in creative teams or teams where you want to encourage innovation and exploration as well as overall achievement, giving people maybe a little bit of space to achieve that goal in their own way, I think makes a big difference to actually getting people feeling like they want to do that,
100%.
Yes. I'm amazed when I work with leaders on this that people are quite mechanistic about it. I think that's often the tricky thing. So if you view organizations as a machine and you're trying to get all the cogs to work together and oil it, I think that's quite different from if you view an organization as, for example, a community, or if you were to view it as an ecosystem. So your framework of what alignment looks like depends on your mental model of your organization. And as you're saying, it's actually true for all of us, not just in work, but as human beings. When we're consulted on things, when we feel we've got a chance to input, there's some great studies. I can't remember the name of the researchers, but in my degree, I loved looking at these kind of studies. They asked people what they thought of a certain decision, and then the decision is made without the people making it have no reference to the input. And then you ask people how satisfied they are with the decision. Where you don't ask people, they're less satisfied than if you do ask them, even if the people making the decision did not get the research fed upwards from the people who are involved. So it's a natural human process that if we feel like we've had some input, we'll be somewhat more satisfied. I still don't think that really does it. I think to get what you're talking about, to get teams who are fully focused on achieving their part, is more sophisticated and takes more dialogue, and it takes a certain values culture from the team, which is that I am going to get myself on board with it. You could ask who is the responsibility to be on board? Is it the direction setters, leaders, people is it their job to get everyone on board? Or is it the job of people who work there to get on board? Because if you work somewhere, when I work with companies, if you work somewhere and you're really not on board and you're persistently not on board with whatever the company's doing, you kind of got to look at yourself and say, look, okay, how long is this going to go on for? Because I can either not be on board with all this forever, or probably I need to go and do something else somewhere else, or move teams, or whatever. This is a long answer. but what I'm saying is, I think that the consultation piece is important, and I don't think it's all the responsibility of leaders to get people on board.
No, not all the responsibility, but I think the right level of communication and the classic, what's in it for me type messaging as well can help get teams on board.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's best done through a lot of peer-to-peer and leader-to-team conversations they call it shaping, don't they? But to shape the direction. Saying, look, I know you feel like that. I know you wanted this, or I know that this isn't your preference, but how are we going to work on this together so that we are all headed in the same direction? What can I do to make it easier for you to get here? Whatever it might be. It's the dialogue. The devil is in the details, but that nuanced dialogue, the closer relationships to bring people to alignment rather than to demand alignment.
Yeah.
And I think probably what you're talking about there as well is something that maybe people watching might have experience, where you're having, I think the phrase you used was a lot of conversations. So how do we make sure that we're getting good outputs from those conversations? Because I think we often hear the phrase, oh, I just need to align on that. And then it seems like everyone's spending all of their time in these meetings, internal meetings, aligning. At what point do we actually just need to actually get a concrete output and move on? And
you've got to draw a line. And in fact, you've got to draw a line. There's time for debate. And in general, that time for debate and disagreement is before a decision is made about where we're going and what we're going to do. If you're good, after that, you say, right, the decision's actually been made, so I'm just going to get on board with it now. And I think even that's not a top down. I think leaders have to do that as well. If your team is working on something and you've put effort into it and you've started it and decisions have already been made and you've headed off in a direction, if I, as a top leader, comes along and says, it's great that you've done all that, but that's not what we're doing anymore. I think my tenure as the senior leader is going to be short, or the frustration of the team is going to be high. So the leaders also have to be able to follow and have to be able to follow the teams. But I think the time is when that decision has been made and taken, and it's all agreed. If the decision's done in a good way, then there's an art to saying, right, even though I never agreed with this to start with, actually we've just elected a pope, haven't we? The pope has been elected. That's the example. At the conclave, afterwards, everyone has to support the decision. And what happened in the bit where they didn't agree, that's now in the past, and it's also not discussed. So they bring together a united front and say, we're going to rally behind this pope. We're excited for them. That's how it works best in organisations. If you're still challenging it after the decision is made, like maybe a few days after, but if you're still there saying, well, I never agree with that, I think it's poor citizenship of an organisation.
Okay.
You obviously disagree.
I'm just thinking about I get what you're saying about the cutoff point for feedback, maybe on the alignment, whatever. It sounds like we're talking about some kind of like change or transition or something here, aren't we?
But it could be a new product launch as well. It could be a new product comes out and I actually don't get it. I mean, and I don't like this product and now I've got to sell it. So, you could say, well, I don't think we should have done this, but what's the point?
But
and also, if you then go to all your client meetings and say, we've just released this product, but actually I don't think it's any good, ultimately you do a lot more, even if it feels personally satisfying, you're going to do a lot of damage.
New hire. So, I mean, there's going to be maybe some level of change, but you've got there's lots of places this can show up, I think.
Yeah, but I think challenge can be beneficial.
Has to
sometimes. So I agree that you can't just say, oh, this is a product we just launched and it's terrible if you're a salesperson selling to your customer, because also that's not in line with probably your personal sales target or goal, whatever it might be. But I think if internally you can still have positive, challenging conversations, then you can help improve the product. So whatever feature is missing that you don't agree with or whatever, there's still an evolution of being able to change and challenge. Can't just draw a complete line under it and say that's a decision, no more input. Everyone just kind of head down, deal with it. I think you have to still keep that dialogue alive.
It depends, I think, doesn't it? I think if it is something that can be improved, it is worthwhile having those
It depends on the kind of decision it is and what the impact is.
And there's also a natural piece. If people don't like something, if they don't agree, they will talk about it. But the question is where. And if you don't make the internal space for it, then they'll just talk about it privately. However, what I'm trying to say is, for how long after does this go on? Effectively, if it goes on, if after some decision is made, there's a lot of important challenges and suddenly it's realised it was a bad decision, fine. But if it's going on and on and on, and if certain people are still going on, if they can't get on board, it's just counterproductive. It's not going to produce anything, So it's tying up emotional resources, people, headspace that could be better used elsewhere for nothing.
Do you think we have a slightly skewed perception of alignment because we are quite a small team? We're 40-ish in this office. We're all obviously quite close, have good relationships. So we're probably quite comfortable saying to a director, actually, I don't agree with this, or this could be improved in this way. How does it look for bigger organizations in your experience? Is it kind of a similar process? Is it more nuanced?
Well, I think maybe I'll talk about big teams, and then you could maybe share a bit of small teams, also creative teams. I think in big organizations, you're miles away from these big decisions. But it's done in exactly the same way. It's organization, country, division, function, team leader. You're probably there with roughly a group of 8 or 10 people in a division of 30 or 50 people or 100 people. It's like so the org size is it's the same process. That in the end, small team leaders have to get their teams on board. But I guess you're much further down the pipe from decisions, and decisions are probably more irreversible, and they've probably already been made months before. So in a smaller organisation, the timeline between when it's made and when it's communicated is probably quite short. But in big organisations, I think a lot of those things, the build-up is quite big. It's made, it's communicated, and then it's driven through the organisation. Yeah. What about in small teams? What about in creative teams? I was thinking, actually, creativity by definition is thinking differently to other people. You run creative teams. By definition, they shouldn't really want to be aligned, because if one person has a good idea, it should be different from another's good idea. But yet, when I've worked with creative teams, they seem to have almost like a religion to the process and really cherishing each other's differences, but they don't end up on a brilliantly aligned creative idea. So how does it work in creative teams?
I feel for me, a lot of creativity is about how you get to an end goal and not all following the same process. And so I think the same thing can apply for alignment, that element of, do I have freedom to explore this with a touch of my own process or format or whatever? Even if we're ultimately getting towards the same goal, I still feel I have the freedom and the space to innovate and try different things and to be creative. And so I think I'm trying to think of an example of alignment, particularly in creative teams.
Video campaigns. We worked on a video campaign recently.
Yeah, or rebranding or something like that. I think there's an element of involving people in the change process so that they are contributing, giving them the freedom where it's right to make their own decisions, and also feel that those decisions are respected. It also doesn't work if you say you can do this bit and then ultimately you say not like that. We need to change it. But I think,
so understanding the scope of autonomy.
Yeah, and where you do have space to play. But I also think even in creative teams, yes, there's an element of people wanting independence, maybe wanting to be different or to come up with something new. But I think, at least in my teams, there's a very collaborative setup. And so there's also something in alignment about how, not just seeing everyone as individuals, but to your point, how it is an ecosystem, thinking about how your attitude and behaviour impacts someone else in the team.
Yes.
Which to me feels like a very natural part of any creative process, to collaborate with others and, like you say, respect each other's opinions. And I think the same thing applies when it comes to change or alignment. It's not just an individual, do I have the space to play and do what I want and be creative and free, but do we as a team feel that we are doing enough experimentation and creativity, but still ultimately sticking to the overall process or the overall goal?
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit, as you're talking, of like the difference between convergent and divergent thinking. And obviously both have the same goal or output, right, of coming to the best possible solution or decision or whatever it is. But yeah, the kind of creative convergent side is thinking about, okay, what are all the ways we could get there? Whereas the divergent, maybe in bigger organizations, is, okay, working really hard on one solution and making that as good as it can possibly be. I feel like we almost need to reinvent the arrow diagram. So we've got the big arrow.
Oh, well, it's
small arrows within that, and then little arrows within that. We need an extra layer of arrows.
Very visually talented here. Are you looking for a different organisational structure with moderate-sized arrows in the big arrow? Is this what we're looking for now?
Exactly, and then the little arrows within that.
Okay, right. Well, I'm trying to just go with it. I'm trying to be aligned.
Yeah,
lovely. And then we also have the arrows. Okay. For the camera. For people just watching at home on the podcast, if you subscribe, you'll be able to get this podcast, again, another great podcast by the Sparks podcast team. But also you'll get to follow us on YouTube, where you can see this excellent drawing taking place. It's like some live street art. It's like we're in Covent Garden, and here I am.
I think art would be a strong word to describe it, but it's live something.
It's live something.
It's live
It's
something.
like a performance.
It's what we're here
Just
for.
to pick up on the point, though, the point about convergent and divergent thinking.
Yeah.
That is also a good example of how it's timing that matters. And signalling. If we know we're in divergent thinking, then let's do it. Any idea counts. But if it's time for convergent thinking, then unfortunately we need to be trying to bring these creative endeavours to a outcome. And I think that's what I'm trying to say earlier about decision making. Like there's a time, isn't there, for all the divergence, all difference, and then there's a time for bringing it together. One other aspect that's really worth thinking about is the quality of your relationships. So if you were to imagine planning a family holiday, let's say we're a family. Okay.
Let's not.
Are we thinking about destination, length, activities, and all the other kind of things we're going to do?
Cycling, not cycling.
Then if we're relationally good, then we know that if we're going to do this together, there's going to be trade-offs, give and take. We might even know that one person, I'm just thinking about my own family holidays, that one person is inflexible. So if we want to go with them, we are going to need to, at times, just get on board with their inflexibility. And we can do that with a smile and with love, or we can do it with the bitter resentment of many years of built-up anger. But I think it's the same in organisations. I think the relationships and the relational skills of first-line leaders and leaders, the hand on the shoulder, the ability to, without necessarily using words, bring your team into a good direction. These are all the management and leadership skills. We do so much, challenging conversations and people leadership, first-line leadership. These are the skills of basic skills of leadership, which is to be able to get your team to not to be on board, but to bring them so they are on board. Not to get them to be on board, but to inspire them to be on board and to shape them and to
spark them.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah,
we should use that.
I was thinking also about the mindset shift. I think we don't talk. We could talk so much about how to change beliefs and how to change opinions. And in sales skills, we might do that. In leadership skills, we can and should as well. When I was working for BMW, I was a product manager. And I had to market what is possibly one of the worst ever products come to market.
So that example from earlier.
Exactly. So I was the marketing. I was the main marketing person in our country for this product. It was called the C1. The idea had come from the cars team of BMW, not the motorcycles team. The cars team decided to make essentially a two-wheel car. So it had, because they said, well, obviously motorcycles are dangerous. They haven't got a safety cell. They haven't got, you can get wet. So they essentially made a two-wheel car with a windscreen wiper, not just like a cover, but a solid roof with a roll cage.
I'm into it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds very secure.
I can tell you who is not into it, and that's everybody who works in the motorcycle industry.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It's unwieldy. You had to wear a helmet. I mean, so anyway. But I was the product manager for this. It's my job to market this to the entire country, and to get we've got a sales target. We've got to get there, and I've got to get all the salespeople and all the journalists and all the dealers on board. And I'm sitting there thinking, but I don't like this. I wouldn't. So first of all, I had to not persuade myself, but I had to get myself to believe that product is good.
Do you have a ride in it?
I have one as my own company car. Yeah, I took one as a company car. I said, no, if I'm gonna be the marketing person, I'm gonna drive this. This is my thing. And then this is kind of also how you change beliefs. What I had to do is I had to go through every good thing and how it could be useful to somebody. So, for example, there are a lot of people who would like to be on two wheels, but are too scared. There are people that don't want to get cold and wet. There are people that would use their motorcycle more often if it was safer and drier. There are people who have bought a BMW car and have money and would like to try it. So you go through all, you think, okay, right. So the use cases and this is all good. Right, now I can not pretend to, but actually speak to journalists and say, no, this is going to be phenomenal. It's actually great. And after I'd got on the 200cc version and driven it around for a few weeks and got used to it, guess what?
You loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. And I think that's like, this is the thing that leaders also need to be able to do, managers need to be able to do with enough artistry, help people see what we're trying to do and why. And I don't know if sometimes I feel that what's in it for them is a bit too much of a sell, but it is a bit of that, isn't it? This is what it can do for you. This is where we're trying to take you.
I think it's an important part.
This is how you can benefit from this. And
even if it's just a part of it initially, this is the bit that relates to you that we can see really working or, having an impact. And then from there, like you say, once you start driving it around, once you get over that first mental hurdle of I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah.
Get it away from me.
Please, anything but this.
Anything but this. Then it also then becomes a little bit easier to incrementally kind of see the
Yeah. So a bit of mindset shift from the people in the organisation as well, that open-mindedness. I want to touch on, we've looked a lot at what alignment is, how maybe we can get there. What happens when we don't have it? What does that look like? I'll come to you first.
Okay, let's put how's it feel for you?
It feels like I'm being atted.
Yeah, let's say that you're a very independent thinker with your own strong opinions.
Mate, not really, to be honest. That's not me at all.
Why we love you. What happens when you've not got alignment? Either for you as a team lead or if you're in a team or if you're on our exec team and you don't agree?
I think overall it makes everything a lot more difficult. I think either you end up, the individuals who are aligned spend a lot of time and energy trying to fix the things that other people are not doing that align with the goal. Or ultimately you end up skewing that arrow and going in slightly the wrong direction. And either not having the impact that is proportionate to the effort that's gone in, or having completely the wrong impact at all. And so it becomes a waste of time and energy for everyone. And becomes frustrating also ultimately, not just for the people who have bought into it and who are aligned, but even to the people who aren't bought into it, because they then feel like they're not aligned with the main goal. They maybe have their own goals, but because other people aren't aligned with that, they can't achieve their goals. And it's a lose-lose for everyone.
It becomes a lose-lose, isn't it? And maybe also the other rest of the organisation, the arrow starts to go on its way, and those that aren't aligned are somehow left behind.
I feel an addition to your visual coming on, Jonna.
They're being dragged along.
What does misalignment look like?
Yeah. So I mean, maybe by the end, the ship has sailed, and you're still there on the harbour saying. Yeah, I don't think we should do that.
On the lifeboat.
Well, we're not, you're not doing it. We're doing it, and you're not. But let's also be really careful. It mustn't become personal. It's very easy to say, Millie doesn't agree.
Which often I don't.
Yeah.
But if we say, Millie doesn't agree, Millie's not on board, how do we get Millie? Okay, I would prefer to say, Millie's a very intelligent woman with her very own good viewpoints. So if she doesn't agree, then I'll be very curious as to what she thinks. And I know that because she's incredibly intelligent and talented, if I can show her a logical enough argument, she will eventually be convinced. And I think that you mustn't label people as difficult. It's actually true, like with your kids. Some kids are more easy to have as children than others. You can't label one as difficult and the other one as not. Annabelle, if you're watching. But you can't. You've got to say, okay, if this person is acting in this way, for their own reasons, they must have reasons for it. Let's find out. And I'm a big fan of logical arguments to help people get on board.
And empathy. Like to understand that in the first place.
Small amount of empathy.
Sometimes it requires quite a lot of empathy. I think there is
2 guests on the podcast.
Yeah. Like I think if you also risk, trying to persuade them, but if you don't have a large amount of empathy and you can understand where they're coming from, you then also risk derailing anyway. And going in saying, I can convince you, and completely getting it wrong.
You can damage your relationships, can't you, if you're not sufficiently empathetic or actually also sufficiently slow. And I think I learned this from my boss. He said that with a little bit of patience, you can achieve a lot. And I was like, that's such a great expression. You can get a lot of alignment just through a small amount of patience as well. So empathy, logic, patience. E-L-P, help.
What's the H?
Hope.
Hope.
Empathy.
Yeah,
Clarity, empathy, logic, patience.
Help. Get the Beatles in here. So what are the causes of that misalignment, do you think? When you haven't got it, people are maybe going off in the wrong direction, we've got a person left on the harbour. Why does that happen?
Let's blame senior management. It's always easiest that way.
No.
It is. Well, firstly, there's often in business there's no right decision, is there? So the decision that is taken, there are probably 8 options, and someone or some group of people have to pick one. So for at least 7 other directions. People say, well, we wish we'd done this instead. So the decision making in business is very rarely, it's very rare, black and white.
Yeah.
It's very rare there's only one option or there's a right and wrong option. In general, there's many, many options. Someone at some point you have to take decisions. So one of the causes is that business decisions. I mean, let's say you've got your iPad, haven't you? Apple decided to invent an iPad. Was it a good idea? Well, it didn't sell a lot of them compared to other things they sold, and watches and phones and laptops. And so, but what if they hadn't got a tablet? I mean, you've got to make one, so let's make the best one we've got. Well, I don't think the iPad was a good product. Well, we made one. So there's lots of things we could have made it 3-dimensional. Apple also don't have touchscreens on their laptops, do they? So someone in Apple is still saying, no, let's not have laptops as a touchscreen. I mean, is it right? Would you like a touchscreen on your Apple laptop?
Not hugely, actually. I don't think I need one.
No, should see a neat laptop.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is like business problems.
Yeah.
That there's often not right answers.
Yeah, it's not that clear cut.
And so it's natural that not everyone agrees, and it's natural that people have got entrenched positions, and but also if you don't make decisions and if you don't get people on board at relative speed as well, then as you said before, you spend ages talking through, shepherding, trying to get people to move in the same direction.
I think there's something as well about clarity, and sometimes you lack the alignment because you've been people have lacked the clarity, and there's a kind of gap between what a leader or a director or whatever believes they have passed on and what's been understood, and so which is why it's important for it to not be a telling process but a conversational process, and a kind of what do you understand about this, how do you feel about it, not just this is what I am telling you is happening. So being super clear, not always, because obviously you will still have people who don't agree, no matter how clear the messaging is, but making sure that it is very, in some ways, simple and very clear what the change or decision is going to be, I think can go a long way as well to avoiding just misunderstandings or misinterpretations of how something will affect.
Yes.
So checking the understanding, checking that the communication
checking back,
has
checking the
landed
clarity.
and worked.
Someone said to me once, which I love, the essence of communication is what is received.
Yeah.
Which is
not what's
so whatever
said.
you said. Classic example. I found out yesterday we had 2 people coming for dinner. So I said to my beautiful wife, Steph, when are you going to tell me these people are coming to dinner? She said, oh, it's in the WhatsApp.
Yeah.
It's like, you've sent the message. I haven't received it. Essentially, I don't know they're coming. But in both cases, both parties are right. But unfortunately, I hadn't received them. I don't check my WhatsApps. But it's like that in leadership. However many times you think you have said or tried to, I mean, I try to communicate things in Slack, Buzz Teams, and then I get immediate private messaging on, did we not put this on the portal? Is it not better to send it by email? I sent on Slack that we're having an all-staff briefing at 9:15 on a Monday, which is, I thought, relatively good comms. But of course, has the diary hold been sent out? But if we did send the diary hold, is everyone on the email? If I send the diary hold, does everyone click yes if they're coming? Or it's like there's all these complexities. So the leader, top level leaders, you just have to keep sharing the messages and hope that your second and third level leaders are also reinforcing those at their team meetings and other times.
Multi-channel efforts.
Yeah. But I think also not just hope that they're sharing it. I think you do have to a degree, ask.
You could check with them.
Check with it. Not in a micromanaging way, but to say, is it clear? Do your teams understand? What else would be helpful from me or from you for people to get what's going on?
Yeah. I think people like things written down as well. So if there's something important, they like to check it, which is why I like to try to use Slack and other messaging platforms available. But to try to do something that's written down, I think people also like to hear it from people. Occasionally, I've done videos and sent those out. I mean, try different media.
Try and see what works, see what sticks.
Yeah, but the US team, they kept saying, well, we'd like to be on the town halls. And so for us to be aligned, we need to hear it. So they liked it when we did a video.
And multi-channel also then helps with that clarity. People read things differently when it's written versus when they hear it. And tone of voice and other input makes a big difference.
For sure. Tone of voice, very key. And is there ever a time, do you think, when it's okay to not be aligned? We're talking about alignment as if that is the thing that all businesses should be aiming for. Is that always the case? Or are there instances where actually it is okay to be misaligned?
I think no. I think you've got to go for it. Creative tension is good. Experiments are good, where you've got different teams doing different things to see if it works, and they might be going in completely different directions. I think experiments that turn into then different service lines or business operating models that are somehow complementary, or this can all work. But I think in organisations you end up in power struggles, politics, conflict, tribalism, team difficulties. The energy lost it's not worth it. You might as well just get on board. You might just, if you're going to be there and put your best efforts in, just get on board. Even if you didn't agree, if you don't agree, if you're not going to agree, just get on board. Come to work. Try and make that happen, because that's what your organisation is trying to do. And you can still give it something your best effort, even if your deep down belief is it's going to possibly fail in the end. But you can't. You've got to get on board with your organisation's goals and direction. I think that's what I'm doing anyway.
What do you think?
I kind of want to disagree, because I think that would make a better episode, but I'm actually finding it quite hard to kind of almost come up with an example when it would.
You're very good at it, Larson. You're very good at saying, yeah, okay, if that's what we're doing, I'm going to go. I think, I can feel that from you as a director here.
Because I think I can agree with the, otherwise it's either you're in the wrong place or it's a huge waste of energy and effort.
Do you think people lack the? I'd say you're also very skillful at disagreeing. Do you think people in general, is it the confidence they lack, or the logic, or the it's bravery, isn't it, or the forthrightness, or that maybe they see too much status and they feel they can't speak up?
Yeah.
But how do you do that? Because you're very able to be very direct in a good way. But you are very direct in a good way with enough challenge as well, despite our maybe different reporting line differences. Like, I would say, impossible to get you on board with something that you're not on board with. Once you're on board with it, you're 100% straight onto it. But where do you get that confidence from? Do you think people lack that? Sometimes they're trying to people please, or I know that's something that you would never do.
but it's something I find quite hard. I think my natural inclination is to people please.
Is it?
But I think there's probably something about the relationship we built.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. And it can also be very individual. Someone might not be comfortable speaking up in one relationship situation than in another.
Yeah.
I feel like we have enough rapport that I'm comfortable to share when I don't agree, because I think I also feel like you would share with me when you don't agree with something. And so it goes both ways. And I think, there's maybe it's a mindset thing of knowing that if I do disagree with something, I will feel better having said something up front than having said, okay, fine, and 2 months down the line resenting, not having had a conversation about it, or not having shared my thoughts.
So that your values push you to speak up. Your inner values, knowing that it matters. It matters that you speak up. It matters that you say what you think. It matters that you are prepared to challenge, and also knowing that in the end you'll feel better. But you also have the communication skills to do it. I guess that's something that we could work on with people. Is it managing outwards, managing difficult conversations? We do a lot of work on this. You need it in order to get alignment. Is that QED for the podcast?
Potentially. As you were talking as well, I was thinking sometimes, do you think we depend on just a little bit of misalignment? And what I mean by that is, if you think about some of the huge organisations that we work with, sometimes to get a foot in the door or to run a pilot for a programme, for example, we almost need that team or that stakeholder to actually take the chance and push that through and try something a bit different before we can then embed a bit further into the organisation. So do you think that's an instance where misalignment works in our favour, or it's needed?
I would say that a lot of coaches, leadership experts, consultancies, McKinsey, Accenture, etc., they all rely on organisations having problems of some kind. And I do think, so in learning and development, you can think about the training aspect of it. Team building and leadership development, yes, our business model relies on the fact that organisations know how valuable alignment is, and they know that they might need help to get it, and they know that if they do have that help to get it, the payoff of having that alignment could be huge. So they do invest in learning and development and in training and in programs, in like product trainings, product education, new product education, sales. Like they invest in those things, knowing that the spend on that, if they spend it and it's they know it can be effective, it will pay off 10x on what they're trying to do. So yeah, I think.
So if you are a bit misaligned, L&D is the missing tool that you could be using to help you align.
Very well put.
Thank you.
I think we often are. I think like midwives and priests, we are there helping someone else at a time. You know, it's not our company, is it? We don't work there.
No.
So we come along, we help with a transformation, a change, a moving of stage. Like leadership development, you're helping someone who will end up being a good leader. You're just helping them to get there, perhaps faster and maybe with less mistakes and maybe with more organic naturalness to who they are rather than doing what they think they should do. But yeah, I think that's the job. That's the job that learning and development does, is to help people. I use 2 life-changing examples, but we could say car mechanics, gardeners, home renovation specialists. There are people that you call in when you're getting a new kitchen that you think, well, I could try to do this myself, but I mean, let's get the proper people and they can help us.
Yeah. It's always a nice moment as well when you have that conversation with 2 different teams and you say, as the external person, you guys should really be talking to each other. That outside
you can help
perspective.
build the alignment, can't you?
Yeah. Okay, final question then, and a bit of a challenge for you both. I feel like we've said the word alignment a lot, and I do think it is a buzzword that does get thrown around and people are maybe a bit sick of hearing it. So do we think alignment is the right term for what we're talking about, or is there something else we could call it?
Well, what about Invisalign?
Are we
That's
sponsored?
the L&D, like helping you behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, people want their teeth aligned. They just don't want you to know how they got there. So they get Invisalign. Yeah, I mean, it's a good word, isn't it? I mean, there's so many metaphors of rowing the boat in the same direction. Are we all on the bus? All this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a common term. I like it, the idea that, you know, when you've got a magnet and the iron filings at school and then you put the magnet underneath and they all go, it all magically gets into the circles. I think it's like that, isn't it? If you can get that kind of coherence in your organisation, maybe that's what we could call it.
Coherence.
If you can get that kind of coherence, then...
Just going to go cohere on that and I'll get back to you.
then organisational life is exciting and joyous. And I think if you can't get it, organisational life is frustrating and at times difficult. So worth going for.
Just do it, in the words of Nike.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. Fabulous. Well, thank you both so much for joining me in my brand new studio here today as well. This has been loads of fun. And if you want another episode of Spark to be coming onto your feed on YouTube or into your LinkedIn, then make sure you drop us a follow and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.